midnight special shine a light on me. Let the midnight special shine a light on me. I don't know if I'm allowed to sing that song or if it's against some sort of terms and use. How's it going, everyone? Got a little bit of time off today before I got to go back to my second job. Taking the wife out for dinner. So it should be a good day. I'm excited. Thank you all so much for being here. So what I would like to do, going off my stream of last night, is we're going to keep talking about the Democrat reaction. Predictably, as I've been saying, again, I'm no genius. I'm not smarter than anyone or anything like that. What's up, SJG? Yeah, you didn't know I'm a fantastic singer. Local karaoke champion. You should get me on some Forgot About Dre. Very good. But, yeah, SJG, if you want to call in, let me know. Not much, man. You know, I was just looking to talk to people. So last night I was accused of not giving people a fair shot to respond to me, which I think that I'm one of the best streamers on that. Not only do I almost all the time have people call in on my live shows that disagree with me. In fact, I enjoy hearing people that disagree with me, but I go out of my way to go on panels where I'm 7-on-1 or 1-on-7 against me from a bunch of communists yelling about how I'm a terrible person and things like that. I sit there patiently, leave them describe their point, and then debunk their nonsense as they yell and scream and interrupt me. Oh, you're working. That's what I'll be doing later. So thanks for tuning in anyways. If you're watching this later, there's only 3 people watching now, one of which is you, SJG. But if you're watching this later, check out my friend SJG Perspectives YouTube channel. He's also on D Live. I don't know if you're on Twitch, are you, SJG? But D Live, I think, is what he's pushing. Yeah, I'm with you, Republic of Tryhards. It looks like God bless Kyle Rittenhouse. That's what it looks like to me as well. He does look like a patriot, but we'll see. I'm open to seeing new evidence that suggests otherwise. But with the currently available evidence, that's what it looks like. So anyways, yeah, follow my friend SJG Perspective. I think you'll really like him. Are you going to get back into doing parodies? He does funny parodies of like songs you'll know, but kind of from a conservative bent, pointing out the idiocy of a lot of these left-wing establishment people. Okay, so he's on Twitch, D Live, and on YouTube at SJG Perspective. So, yeah, Danabo, I agree with that. So Danabo is on Twitch, and he was someone that was on the Twitch panel. I absolutely agree with you, Danabo. I thought that you were fair and engaged in good faith. I absolutely did. And by the way, so did Dylan. And by the way, let me say, Danabo, while you're here, I don't wish any ill will on Demon Mama, on Prime K's or any of them. I really don't. In fact, still after that event, if you watch my streams, I told people one of my big things is supporting independent content creators. Even if you're on the left and you don't like me because I'm on the right, that's totally cool. I get that. I'm not for everyone. Everyone has a different perspective. And so I've still been recommending people to check out Prime K's channel. I don't know if Demon Mama has a channel, but that's fine. People could check it out too. And if I could explain this to you, Danbo, hopefully you're still there. Just a couple things. One, aside from just the fact that I have disagreements with how that panel went, I don't like the 8-person panels. I just don't. It's not fair to anyone. And it's not, it's left-wing people, it's their fault. It's not. It's just as bad if you go on a right-wing channel. Just too many chefs, and you don't get to have a nuanced argument. Instead, you just get these little sound bites. And so I don't blame people for that, because when you don't have a lot of time to explain a nuanced position, it could come off sounding glib. And I think that it leads to more kind of hostile reactions. I'm guilty of that as well. So I would say that just to start with. And I also want to be clear that I don't mean that everyone I've engaged with on the left. Dylan's a fantastic moderator. I think he's great. I'm hoping to do his show tomorrow, which I think Prime Case is doing that show. Unfortunately, it looks like I probably won't be able to do it. I got to get a hold of Dylan tonight. I don't mind. I don't like those panels with 8 people, but Dylan's a friend of mine. Even if I heavily disagree with his politics, I think that he's been an incredible moderator, and I really do support his channel and hope that it grows. Because again, I trust that Dylan, even if I disagree with him, and it was something that I was saying when we were discussing, if you remember, Danbo, the topic about, do you vote for people based on their platform? And I did make a comment that sometimes I feel like I would vote for someone that I trust, even if they disagree with me. I trust they actually care about average people, rather than someone who pretends to have my politics, but clearly is just doing it for a job or to get personal enrichment. And so I feel that way about Dylan. I feel that he actually cares about people. I heavily disagree with a lot of what he says. But yeah, I hope that people If you're going to get your news from a left-wing source, I'd rather it be through people like you and Dylan, who I think clearly, even if we have disagreements, care about people rather than MSNBC or something like that. So, what's up, everyone? So I was just talking to my Danabo, who was someone, I believe it's fair to call you left-wing, or at least someone who leans towards the left. He was on the debate I did Monday night that was a train wreck, but he wasn't one of the people that I thought were interrupting and things like that. In fact, I think Danabo would have a good case to be made that even more than me, he had less of a chance to speak. So just the way it worked out. So I just want to be clear. And let me be clear about a couple other things to kind of give an olive branch to the left. Oftentimes when I talk about the problems of the left, the problems of Democrats, I just want to be clear. I articulate this a lot, but I have to make this clear. I'm not talking about everyone on the left. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm primarily talking about the people that I see as running those movements. So establishment politicians, establishment people in academia and things like that. Some of my best friends in the world are Democrats. Some of my best friends in the world are heavy Trump haters and think that I'm a total moron for voting for Trump. Yeah, we'll get to that, Jack Hextealer. Yeah, and that's another thing, Danabo. Yeah, I get you. He says, I'm a lifelong labor supporter living in Arizona, or Arkansas, I believe. Yeah. I'm not sure American politics has a label for me. Labels are tough. As humans, we need labels. It's almost impossible to have a conversation without labels. But on the other hand, like when you're talking about labeling people in political party, I say this all the time. I don't agree with, if you're honest and you come up with your own opinions, you'll never find another person in the world that totally agrees with you on everything. You never will. It won't happen. And so you're not going to find a political party or label that agrees with everything you say either. So the best you could do is put a label that's close to what you identify as. So I'm not someone like, look, and you'll hear the rest of the stream and you'll be like, oh, okay, this guy's a lunatic. Now he's yelling about the left. I'm not saying everyone on the left. And if it doesn't apply to you, then that's fair enough. Okay. Let me moderate, says, yeah. Yeah, I think Dylan believes in his convictions. I agree with that as well. So, okay, Jack Hextealer. First off, anyone who would like to call in or get on my Discord, just let me know. I'd be willing to have, particularly someone who disagrees with me, I would welcome you coming on. So just let me know in the chat if you would like to do that. I, however, will not be bringing on like 5-6 people at a time. I think once you get more than like 3 or 4 people involved in a conversation, it gets lost in the weeds. And oftentimes it's the people with the best points to make on either side of an issue that are the most polite and leaving other people say their issue that don't get to voice their opinion when there's 8-9 people. So I just don't. Okay, fair enough, Jack. So we'll talk about your point anyway. So feel free to chat in the chat if you want. You say the Democrats are not left, centrist at best. Well, that's true. In fact, the Democrats are basically the same as the establishment Republicans. The labels of left, right, centrist are awkward. You'll have extreme left-wingers that say, this country doesn't have a left wing. It's just right-wing and far right-wing and things like that. But you have people on the right that say the same thing. We don't have a true conservative party. We have, the party of incredible spending and identity politics in the Democrats, and then the party of just slightly less spending. Neither of those are in the Republicans. Neither of those are conservative. So one of the things I say that hopefully is an olive branch to you, Jack, though I'm about to heavily criticize your first comment, is this, that until we get corruption out of our political system, until we have it so that unelected bureaucrats and oligarchs aren't the ones really controlling the show, until we don't have a popular culture, because politics is downstream of culture, that all leans to this kind of faux progressive establishment politics that's for the military-industrial complex, it's for screwing over the American workers, etc., then it doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right, because your opinion doesn't matter. You could vote, they'll promise you the moon, and then if someone gets into office and tries to actually act in good faith, like I think Donald Trump tried to, I'm sure you disagree, what happens? There's a coup engaged against him by those same establishment people, on the right and the left. The Mitt Romneys, the John McCains, the Jeff Flakes worked hand in hand with the Schumers, the Pelosi's, the James Comeys, the Brennans, the Clappers. Now left-wing mainstream media that we're supposed to assume is a bastion of integrity, they're hiring the very people from these intel agencies that they're tasked with holding truth to power, because the mainstream media is no longer journalism, it's just propagandism. Jack, we're going to agree on a lot. It says, Jack says, identity politics takes away from the true problems, which is class issues, in my opinion. I totally agree. Though it depends on how you define class issue, but I think we would define it in a very similar way. I say this all the time. Black Lives Matter. There are probably people in Black Lives Matter that legitimately care about Black lives and the Black community, and they feel that they need a voice. I agree, there are legitimate problems in the Black community. I talk about them on my show all the time. I come at it from a different way to solve it, which I talked heavily about last night in my show, but I understand that. Look, let me be real clear. I ran for Congress as a Republican. I volunteered for Trump's campaign and was offered a job on Trump's campaign. One of the things I asked every time I talk with actual establishment Republicans is, what are we doing to reach out to communities that we don't traditionally get to vote for us, such as young people, single mothers, inner city Black community? And they said, we only go after the low-hanging fruit. They're more interested in talking to people they think are guaranteed to vote for them. And I said, then I don't blame inner city Black community for not voting for Republicans. Why would they if the Republicans are unwilling to talk to them? If I would have run my congressional seat, one of the first things on my itinerary was to talk to the local Democrats and let them know from the bottom of my heart, even though they didn't like my politics and even though they didn't vote for me, I still wanted to hear from them because they're Americans and I'm representing them, and that matters. The same is true if you're a Republican. I don't care if you don't get one person to vote for you from the inner city Black community. You represent them, and you should be listening to them and trying in good faith to enact policies that help them. Now, I think the focus on race is a distraction, and it's terrible, and it makes things worse. But you still have to talk to those communities. So I agree that there are problems that we need to talk about in those communities. But ultimately what we see is the biggest fear from the people in power that haven't done anything for the actual working class in this country for 50 years is that working class white people and working class Black people and working class Hispanics and working class men and women and working class Christians and Muslims and atheists will come together and say, wait a minute. All these people at the top that are dividing us based on all these group characteristics, they're all getting incredibly rich and exploiting us. If we come together, we could talk about our real policy differences later. But if we come together and demand that we put people in positions of power that have the people's interest at heart, then things will start to increase and become positive in these communities. And instead, what we have is places that own sweatshops like Nike putting Black Lives Matter slogans at. And so now the very people that are supposedly against exploitation of the most vulnerable are celebrating Nike. The NBA, nobly, paragons of virtue, decided that they were going to boycott because of, this gentleman that was shot in Kenosha by police. So they were going to boycott, and they were furious, and they're going to do this and that for one day. Now it looks like they're going back to work. Geez, a one-day vacation to virtue signal? I could do that. Maybe I'll call off work next week for some cause. What a hero I would be, right? It's nice to see, ridiculous multimillionaires like LeBron James, who's getting, he could virtue signal. He could drive race relations through the toilet, but when it comes to his personal actions and his personal business relationship with a company like Nike that is actually using sweatshop labor, or with the government of communist China that is interring Uyghur Muslims and having them work in sweatshops, which is all enriching LeBron James, he won't speak up against them. And this is oftentimes what you see by the people that are morally superior to you and that tell you that how great they are. Cheap words are easy. When it actually can affect them, when it could affect their popularity, when it could affect their pocketbook, all of a sudden the virtue signalers are silent, are they? LeBron James doesn't have anything to say about the CCP. He doesn't have anything to say about sweatshops and Nike. So, yeah, I agree. I think that what you see is, and I tell this to, look, again, let me be clear. I think Black Lives Matter is a domestic terrorist organization. I do not think that everyone that supports Black Lives Matter or has marched with them is a domestic terrorist. I think that the movement and the people that founded it and are driving the direction of the movement are communist. I think they want to see the destruction of capitalism. They're pretty open about it. I think they wanted to see this destruction of things they consider Western values like the nuclear family. They talk about it right in their website. They want to say institutions like science, technology, engineering, mathematics are all racist. They want to say that education and science is driven by white supremacy. They're against the values of the Enlightenment. It's pretty clear. Just go to any critical race theory class in universities all over the country. I've been dealing with this since I was in the debate community in 2003. I know what it's about, and that's why I despise it. Black Lives Matter. That's why I'm against the organization Black Lives Matter. Because every policy that they're asking for, whether it be defunding the police or abolishment of the police, or dismantling of the nuclear family, etc., every single one of those policies will hurt Americans. And in particular, it will hurt black inner city Americans the fastest and the most. Where already see homicides in cities all across the country that have talked about defunding the police and demoralize them. They're going up. In July alone in New York City, homicides were up, or shootings were up 117% in just July of 2020 versus July of 2019. The Democrats paid lip service to the riots, or they deflected for the riots, or they ignored that they were occurring, and now their internal polling shows, it turns out, shockingly, the average person doesn't like riots. When they thought that they could use it to hurt Donald Trump, they were all about it. They don't care about the people that were affected by the riots. They don't care at all. They only cared when it looked like their internal polling said, there's been 72 days straight of rioting in Portland? They didn't say word one. We actually had left-wing terrorists take over 6 city blocks in Seattle. Black Lives Matter and Antifa, they took it over. The Seattle mayor called it the Summer of Love. The first thing they did was build a wall. Then they created their own police force. Then they stopped and frisked people and searched their papers. Inevitably, that police force killed 2 unarmed black young people. The audio shows that not only did they put 30-something bullets into the car, but then they walked up to the car and said, he's still breathing, pap, 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 and put 3 bullets in his head. Killing a 16-year-old, I believe, black kid. Where was the outrage? Where was Black Lives Matter saying, whoa, this was done in our name. We don't agree with this. Where were the riots? Where was LeBron James in the NBA? They didn't care. This is the predictable outcome. Now, let's go back and talk to your original point, Jack, because I think this is worth talking about. You say, so the cops let a man gun down people in cold blood, and then they let him go peacefully. A black man would have been turned into Swiss cheese. That's not true. First off, the fact that Rittenhouse was arrested for first-degree murder is a joke. And it's done because, one of the things I always say, the problems with Antifa and Black Lives Matter that I've been talking about since 2014, it's not that there are a bunch of violent anarchists, terrorists in those organizations that will use violence and intimidation to prove their political point. That's a problem, but that's not the major problem. The major problem is they are backed by almost every single one of our institutions. Now, I know the counter to this. And it's true, the counter to this is too. But wait a minute. Our institutions such as corporations, the media, academia, the entertainment industry, Silicon Valley, and many others, many of them are just paying lip service to Black Lives Matter. They don't actually agree with their cause. That's true. And that's what I tell people in Black Lives Matter. If you're one of the good ones that aren't a domestic terrorist, let me assure you, I might disagree with your movement, and I think that the focus on race is actually causing division. And it actually stops us, of people of all colors, genders, sexual orientations, from coming together and fighting against the real corrupt people that are seeking to use this division. But even having said that, if you really care with the progressive cause that Black Lives Matter is supposedly espousing, you're just a useful pawn. These corporations, these politicians, they don't care about you. As soon as you lose your political usefulness to them, they'll discard you. If Joe Biden wins, do you think they're going to allow Black Lives Matter to riot outside the White House like they did with Donald Trump? Do you think that Democratic mayors are going to allow the rioters to come into their communities? We could already see it's not the case. Lori Lightfoot, the Chicago mayor, what'd she do? No one's allowed to protest around a city block around her house. She has a right to keep her family safe, she said. There you go. I say it all the time. I'm against the violence. I'm against the destruction. Why are you burning down innocent people's businesses? Why are you burning down predominantly inner city businesses and homes? If I'm against all the violence, but I'm thinking that if I was someone that said the institutions are racist, then I would be bringing the fight to the institutions. Not just the police, but the politicians that are running the institutions. The wealthy celebrities and oligarchs that have all the money, that have their voices heard while your voice is silenced. But yet we don't see any of that. Now, when I talk to Black Lives Matter people on panels, they say, oh, well, the corporations don't really back Black Lives Matter. They're just saying that because they think it'll make them money. Exactly. If you think that they are part of an institutional racist system, why aren't you going after them? Well, because you know that it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And I'm just trying to tell you, as soon as you outlive your usefulness, they will crack down on you, and you will have no allies. You'll have already gone after any average American that otherwise would have had your back and said, yes, there are things to criticize about them. Just saying. It's not just anarchy, though, Jack. There are a lot of self-professed anarchists, but how can anarchists simultaneously be communist? For example, let's take Antifa. Let's assume that Antifa is an anarchist organization that's against fascism. Part of fascism, and let's take fascism out of it. Like, the idea of anarchy, one of the big things they would be against is bigger government. So I never understood why so-called anarchists always seem to be less critical of Democrats, which by and large, just by their core governing principles, favor bigger government. Why would anarchists seem to be less angry at Democrats than Republicans? Why are they always voicing their displeasure or acting out with violence against Republicans as opposed to Democrats? And then when we see something where you can see real fascist principles like the lockdown over COVID, regardless if you agree that it was necessary or not, as an anarchist, you would be furious with that. You would say, no. Not only is my right to movement being restricted, my right to peaceably gather with people I want being restricted, my right to have labor of the kind that I want being restricted, my right to worship as I want being restricted. All of this is some of the heaviest restrictions we've ever had in the United States. Yet not one anarchist lifted a finger about that. In fact, in Europe, anarchists rioted, you ready for this, against people who wanted to lift the lockdowns. So I agree with you. A lot of people that are rioting for supposed anarchy have no idea what they're talking about. And they're embracing Marxist and communist principles, which are a big central government ideology. So it doesn't matter to them, though, because a lot of it is LARPing. A lot of it is just destroy the system, whatever it is. So they don't have to be intellectual consistents in their position. And a lot of them are postmodernism that don't believe in truth anyways. So they don't need intellectual consistency. Now, to your point, though, Jack, the first point, which is, was Kyle Rittenhouse like a murderer and shot people in cold blood? He did not. Now, let me first say this. I am open to seeing new evidence. I always am. Unlike people that we see in the mainstream media, for example, with Jacob Blake, was that his name? Excuse me, the black man who was shot by police. They claimed that he was, every cryon said he's unarmed, he was unarmed, he was unarmed. Now it turns out he wasn't unarmed. He had a knife. Now, does that mean he deserved to be shot in the back 7 times? I don't know. Not that fact alone, it doesn't mean. Now, that's more complicated, as I'll get to in a minute. But with Rittenhouse, the problem is, even if he was there and had a gun illegally, and even if he wasn't from that community, he has a right to defend people in this country that the government is unwilling to defend against violence. If he had the gun illegally, he should be charged with that. That's fine. I don't mind that. But this is not first-degree murder. He clearly acted in self-defense. Now, I know that the left-wing narrative, which is disgusting to me, is that this guy was somehow a cold-blooded murderer. And first, just real quick, let's talk about Tucker Carlson. Tucker said the same thing that I've been saying since day one of the George Floyd riots, which is, if you say that political violence is acceptable, if you turn a blind eye to these riots and say, well, it's mostly peaceful and blah, 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 inevitably what will happen is this. Force will be necessary to stop it. Once the rioters and looters saw, hey, we could basically do this with impunity, they're not going to stop on their own. They're not. They're not even giving you demands for, if you meet these demands, we'll stop this. There's nothing. What are their demands? They have none. We'll stop looting Target if X. They don't say that. In fact, we saw Minneapolis last night. They rioted and looted. Why? Because a black homicide suspect shot and killed himself. And they lied and said, the police shot him. And then they rioted. Well, once it became evident that no, that man killed himself, the police didn't do it, why were the riots continuing? Well, because they don't care about the reason for it. They're rioting for rioting's sake. And again, I'll say this as cleanly as I can. I looked up some of the numbers on this, so I hope this is accurate. But I know in general this is true. We have hundreds of thousands of law enforcement. I think 700,000 law enforcement officials in the United States. We have over 300 million people living here. There are over 10 million interactions between people and law enforcement a year. Because of that and the fact that everyone has one of these, a video camera that they carry on them, you could take any group. You could throw a dart and hit a board. It's like, we want a lesbian woman of color. Boom. Okay. You could find an example of police doing something bad to a lesbian woman of color. You could. Asian American man. Boom. Bam. You could find that. Because there's so many interactions, there's so people. There will always be bad things that police officers do. There will always be mistakes that police officers commit. So if you want an excuse to riot, you'll always be able to find one. Again, remember what we're talking about. The riots over George Floyd and all these riots supposedly started because police killing unarmed black men. 14 last year, according to the Washington Post. 14. Now, admittedly, that's only shootings, so there could have been a dozen more that weren't shootings that they killed. But that's assuming that any of these deaths were corruption by the police. Many of them, I looked into the specifics. For example, one of those shootings was a black female police officer who shot a black unarmed suspect that was choking her to death. She used the taser, it didn't work, so she had to shoot herself to get a bigger man off of her that was trying to kill her. At least 2 of those incidents were unarmed black men that were ramming their car into police and the police shot. They're technically unarmed, they're just in a vehicle, but they were trying to kill the cops. So I don't know, but let's just say 30, is that fair? I don't know the specific number, but you're talking a couple dozen at most. Deaths at the hands of police by unarmed blacks, as opposed to over 7,000 that was done of black on black homicide. And that justifies all this rioting stuff. It'll never get to 0. Are we going to have riots if there's 1? Is that what's going to happen? You'll always be able to find one. We'll never get to there unless you completely end policing, which is not doable. We saw in the CHAZ zone what happens. If you get rid of police, we'll still, unless you're total anarchy, which is a clear disaster, you will have some sort of laws. You might not call them laws. You might call them codes to live by, behaviors you should engage with. But we will have societal norms that say this is how we expect people to act. And inevitably, you'll need people to enforce those norms. It might be people like Kyle Rittenhouse. That's maybe what you'll get. But you will have people that either society deems or they deem themselves to take the law and enforcing it into their own hands. That's going to happen. So we've realized in Western society, and again, it's not just right-wingers saying this. I ask you to check out Brett Weinstein's podcast, Dark Horse Podcast, where he talks specifically about the best thing that society has done, humanity has done, since learning to not defecate where they eat, is giving the monopoly on violence and force to law enforcement. That doesn't mean that law enforcement won't sometimes behave badly. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't always be striving to get a better and better law enforcement. It will never be perfect. We should always be working towards it. But if we riot and if we use it as an excuse anytime something happens in law enforcement that's questionable or bad, then there'll be riots nonstop all the time. So police are inevitable. It's a good thing, but we should work to improve it. That's all true. Sorry, I'm missing some. Right. Sorry, I'm missing some of the. Thanks for being here, Jack. I appreciate it. And by the way, I love talking to people that disagree with me, and you're very polite in doing so. Danabo, if you're still here, thanks to you as well. People that are on the left. BC Covenant says neocons are just as bad as the leftists. The leftists are neocons at this point. How many Bush officials are now supporting Joe Biden? How many conservatives that were for every foreign regime change war, like Max Boot, are now endorsing Joe Biden? Joe Biden himself's acted as a neocon his entire career when it comes to foreign policy. Grinnell nailed it last night where he said, Trump's the president that said, why are we engaged in these disastrous foreign regime change wars? The Democrats are the party that, they don't want us to pull anything out. All of my friends in 2013 or 2003 that were against the Iraq war now are totally for it. They're totally for intervention policy because the Democrats are doing it. Now it's considered fascism to be against interventionism. They say, oh, that's nationalism. But I agree. I don't think capitalists are as bad as communism. Communists. There are certainly people that exploit capitalism in an unethical way, like Amazon, and they should be dealt with. But certainly communism, the experiment's been ran over and over. There is no debate. The body's stacked up with communism by the hundreds of millions. And not just them attacking other people, their own people. Let's see. Sean Loitering says, police haven't been around that long. We know what happens without police. The police become whoever's the strongest gang in the area. Totally agree. That's what happened in the CHAZ zone. It took 2 weeks for them to extrajudicially murder young black kids. And then, not just that, but then be protected by the mayor and be protected by all the supposed peaceful hippie people that were there. You can find video of them going around trying to get people's cell phones to make sure that no one cooperated with the police or had film of what actually happened. There's your peaceful, oh, we're against government use of force, except when we appoint people that we declare our government and they use force. Then we're for it. A government that protects the Christian American nation's on my team. The corporation that hires by supports economically the Christian American nation is on my team. everyone else is waging war against. Okay, I agree with 90% of what you're saying. As someone, I don't talk about my faith often, but I guess I would declare myself Christian. I don't attend church regularly. I just believe in being Christ-like. I believe that Christ existed, and I believe that I'm supposed to look at him and say, that's how I should try to live my life. I fail every day, obviously. I'll never achieve that no matter how hard I try, but that's basically what religion means to me. And I do think that I see Christianity under attack in this country. However, I used to heavily criticize Christianity, and I would still continue to criticize it in some circumstances if people that are Christians engage in a hypocritical way. So if they're judging people in the LGBT community, but then turns out to be LGBT themselves, I have a problem with that. I personally am for gay marriage. I don't know if it's a sin or not. I don't really care, because I think, to me, that's not for me to deal with. That's for a higher power to deal with. If it's a sin, that's up to the person sinning and the higher power. I sin all the time. That's between me and a higher power. You know, it's not the role of government to enforce no sin. But having said that, I agree that those principles are clearly, the principles of Christianity were intended by our founding fathers to be what our system of governments was based upon. That's certainly true. Now, I do agree in the separation of church and state. I am for that. I think you should be allowed to worship in this country as you see fit. And I see people of different religions, and even people that are non-religious, behave in ways that I would consider Christian-like, that are good, moral people. And if they get to that through a different religion, I don't have a problem with that. But let's see. Sorry, Frank, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Sorry, I'm missing a lot of the chat here. Let's be frank. Please check out his channel. He's one of my favorite people. He's done the radio show with me. Has an awesome channel. He knows way more about Christianity than me. He leads some prayer groups on his channel, and he also talks very similar to me politically. So please check out his channel. It's Let's Be Frank on YouTube. So thanks so much for being here, Frank. Let's see. Yeah, JoJo's my brother in the YouTube chat. He says, Rob and I went to church our whole life. We know the Bible. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but yeah, we chose our own lives and hold on to what we were caught. Yeah, I agree with that. So, okay. So let's talk about Kyle Rittenhouse for a second. Now, predictably, the Tucker Carlson angle first. Tucker said something that is true, and somehow he's being attacked. And this is how you know the disingenuous nature of the people. So, for example, one of the things you need to do is not look at the world through a vacuum. Now, if someone's constantly lying or misrepresenting the truth to you in ways that matter, you should take that into account when they're trying to tell you something that you're maybe not informed upon. Now, I know the pushback to this will be Trump lies all the time. One, many of Trump's lies are a sort of different lie. Not to say that lying's ever good, but they're like a braggadocious lie. Like, I have the biggest crowd ever. No one respects women more than me. Like, these are clearly, it's like, okay. It's like the difference between this. Someone telling you, man, I caught a fish the other day and it was 40 inches. Oh, man. 40 inches. This is a little bigger than 40 inches. It was huge. It was the biggest bluegill you ever saw. The thing was huge. In the back of your head, you're like, okay, dude. But whatever. That's different than a lie that impacts you like, yeah, I didn't steal your stuff. I didn't take that. Lies that actually can harm you. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. But yes, when Trump lies, it should be called out. I don't mind that. Every politician lies. Every person lies. I lie. It's not good. And it should be called out if you see it. But there are different types of lies. Rob, that shirt looks good on you. Maybe that's a lie. I like the little pineapples, though. By the way, it's the same shirt I wore last night. Don't judge me, though. This shirt was completely clean. I was shirtless. And I was like, I can't sleep. I'm going to do a video. So I threw this on because I had it set out to wear today. And then did a video and took it off and went back to bed. Trust me, no one wanted to see me shirtless. So it's clean. It's clean. Anna says, can I get a source link to the claim you made that libertarians tried to start a coup against Trump? I don't think I ever made that claim. If I did, I was mistaken. I don't think I said that. I said that unelected bureaucrats started a coup against Trump, that the intel community under Barack Obama started a coup against Trump. I don't think it was libertarians. I think most of them are neocon neolibs. So, I said libertarian when you said I was a lib. It must have been something got lost in the shuffle. All I could say is if I said that, I misspoke. I speak pretty fast sometimes. I don't recall ever saying that. But no, let me articulate, and you could check out literally thousands of hours of my video to say that the coup against Donald Trump was against people that were favoring Barack Obama. I do have problems with libertarians. I would consider for a long part of my life, I considered myself a libertarian. One of the big problems I have against libertarians is the open borders aspect. I also see people that are self-professed libertarians that I feel have unduly put their fingers on the scales, and they identify more with the Democratic Party or go after the Republican Party more, when I think that that's a huge mistake. And I think that libertarians that we've put up, like Gary Johnson and others, are complete jokers. But yeah, what's up, Milo? How's it going, man? Yeah, if you're saying what I think you're saying, Brady, yeah, Frank's prayer meeting is definitely less anger than my average post. Probably a good thing, too. Abu Hashish says Trump doesn't give AF about any of you. Maybe. It's a preference thing. I can't look to see what's inside someone's heart. I could give my comments on what I think. My personal feeling is Trump does care about working class Americans. And I think that you can see it in little things that's hard to fake. Like the difference between Barack Obama standing there and making a Marine hold an umbrella over him while the Marine gets soaked, versus Trump walking off Air Force One and sees a Marine's hat blow off and instantly runs over and grabs it and puts it on the Marine. Or like autistic people a couple weeks ago running on stage while Trump was there and Trump hugging each and every one of them. Things like that. My personal belief is that Trump actually cares about working class Americans, but he's also arrogant and he wants... Thank you, Frank. I really appreciate it. Frank says, keep spreading the truth, my friend. Help support people like me. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. But I feel Trump does truly care about people. And he's arrogant and he's flawed. I think that Trump really wants to be liked and really wants to be seen as a popular president, but I think he does care about the people. Now, I also think Trump surrounded himself with some horrible people, and that one of Trump's biggest faults is that he listens to people that surround him that are actually for the establishment and against him, like John Bolton. However, let me give you an olive branch, Abu. Does it matter in the end of the day? If Trump endorses lockdowns that I think are a disaster for the average American, does it matter if he's doing it because he's just misinformed or if he doesn't care about the average person? Not really at the end of the day, the results. So I've criticized Trump heavily. But it's clear to me the reason I elected Donald Trump was one reason, and it's proven in spades. It doesn't matter if Trump intentionally did this. I, in 2016, said my dream election was Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump. And I'm someone who despises the progressive agenda of Bernie Sanders. But I felt that both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump were viewed by the establishment as potential threats to their monopoly on power. And I thought that was worth more. If it had been Jeb Bush versus Bernie Sanders, I would have voted for Bernie Sanders. No doubt in my mind. None. Because to me, the number one issue is getting rid of the corruption in our system that's represented by people like Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, etc. Now, you might say, but wait a minute, Bernie and Trump both ended up being part of the establishment. That could be true. I don't think so in the case of Trump. Bernie spent 4 years after 2016 trying to tell the establishment, trust me, I am one of you. I will do whatever you say. It didn't work out for him. Sorry, Bern. You sold out for nothing. Enjoy that lake house. I think Trump has been anti-establishment. Maybe you disagree. But to me, I don't even have to win that argument. All I have to win is that they thought he might be anti-establishment. And that's why they engaged in a coup against him, which we see evidence more of every day. And we see just how biased and horrible the media is, and they were propagandists. And we see the same of academia, and the same of Silicon Valley, and the same of the entertainment industry. And fighting back against that cultural dominance by the establishment left is more important than who wins any specific election. So now, never before, you used to have tinfoil hat people like me talking about government corruption and things like that. Now it's all right in our face. We have an IG appointed by a Democrat, Barack Obama, demanded to investigate by the Democrats, that proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the FBI was entirely corrupt when they went after spying on Donald Trump's campaign. No one cares on the left, but again, it shows just how crazy things are. We have the party that their president just won the Nobel Peace Prize foaming at the mouth anytime Trump wants to stop these disastrous foreign regime change wars. The veil has been lifted. And to me, I don't think Trump's playing 4D chess. I never say that. I think his mere existence forced them to come out of the woodwork like never before. That's why I'll vote for Trump again, because what we see the Democrats doing, endorsing riots, putting old people with COVID into nursing homes that are killing people in nursing homes, which now, by the way, it looks like the Department of Justice is investigating. Good. Every single governor and health expert that did that should be thrown in jail for the rest of their life. They intentionally murdered elderly people by putting COVID patients in those nursing homes and locking the doors, which led to tens of thousands of people dying. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a whoopsie, we didn't have the funds to do something. They intentionally put people in camps to kill them. And we could argue about it all you want, but you will never be able to convince me that supposed health experts and epidemiologists and virologists knew less about a virus than the average person on the street. You ask any person, hey, there's a bad virus coming, who should we protect? They'll say, oh, the old people are going to be the most vulnerable. Yet all of the experts simultaneously said, you know what we should do? Put infected people in with old people in nursing homes. And then when they die, we'll point to the deaths and go, see, we need to take your rights away even more. All of that we're seeing. They're endorsing these riots. I think I already said that. They're against potential life-saving medication like hydrochloroquine because they would rather see the virus ravage us so that they could justify their use of power in going after Donald Trump. They're now for foreign regime change wars and against pulling out of these disastrous conflicts. It's terrible. They're now the party of the rich Wall Street interest, as they always were. They just pretended to be the party of the middle class. So that's why I voted for Donald Trump. Let's see. Anna says, please get off the fence. Listen, I am who I am. I'm giving you my authentic, this is who I am. I could be friends with you if you're on the left or the right. I think you're wrong if you're on the left, but this is who I am. I'm not on the fence, I don't think. And this is something I get from a lot of conservatives that say, why do you argue about why the Republicans are bad so often? Because I'm not a homer that's going to ignore when my side does things I think are wrong. I don't think it's a detrimental trait for me to be able to admit when something happens on my side that I didn't like. A lot of conservatives don't like that, and I hear a lot of people call me, a fence sitter on the left for that. It is who I am. I don't think I'm fence sitting. I'm thinking my positions are pretty straightforward. Biden is literal poison. I absolutely agree. The deal that the Democrats are making is vote for us or we'll destroy your country. And I know people that would vote Republican that are like, I honestly believe if Joe Biden's elected, we'll see less riots and we'll see the lockdowns lifted because I think that they're so corrupt that they're supporting this. And they're right. That's absolutely true. The riots will stop. The lockdowns on COVID will be lifted. And so if you're interested in short-term security, you might take that deal. It's no different than when the mob came to your business and said, hey, it'd be a shame if something happened to your business. Why don't you pay us protection money? That's the deal the Democrats are offering. We will burn down your country. We will crush the working class unless you vote for us. And then we'll just do the crushing in a very slow, drawn-out way. But the reason you don't accept this Faustian bargain is what ends up happening is you'll have to vote for them the rest of your life. Because now that it's proven that it works, what do you think happens in 2024 if you don't elect a Democrat? They'll burn it all down again. They'll find another reason to lock you down. They'll find another reason to say that you can't go to your mom's funeral. You can't go to your daughter's wedding. They'll find another reason to say we have to take more of your money and spend trillions. That you can't go to work. That we deem you non-essential. That your kids can't go to school. That we're supporting riots against your country. It'll be worse. So we have to take a stand. You can't give in to these terroristic threats that are being endorsed by the Democratic Party. Yes, they will open up the borders. They'll flood America with leftist voters. Absolutely true. Again, I was arguing on that panel the other night. Isn't it ironic that all of these supposed communists that hate corporations are all for open borders, which is exactly what the corporations are for? Isn't that ironic? Say what you will about corporations. Now, I'm a capitalist, but I do think that we need to rein in a lot of these corporations. And I understand that might make me somewhat of a hypocrite. But I'm not completely free market everything. In fact, I think capitalism has provisions to stop monopolies. And when we're talking about corporations such as Amazon, Google, that are more powerful than almost any nation state in history, you're damn right we should rein them in. But I find it ironic. You say what you will about them. They're smart. They're not spending billions and trillions of dollars to defend politicians that are going to go after them. That's not happening. So it doesn't cause you pause for a moment if you're a communist to say, why are so many of my positions endorsed by the very corporations that I hate most? It doesn't cause you pause? Danabo, I know you were not for open borders. Absolutely agree. Danabo was a left-wing. This is one of the things I wish I'd got to talk to you more, Danabo. I assume we disagree on 90% of our politics, but one of the things I respect are people that are willing to go outside of the box and just say, well, I'm not just going to say whatever my team says. And I talked about this specifically when it comes to immigration. It's interesting because what you end up seeing is a lot of free market people on the right all of a sudden are like, but wait a minute, we need border restrictions. And then a lot of people that are against free market principles and want regulation all of a sudden are against any sort of regulation of borders. And so there's enough to go around to say, wait a minute, it seems tenuous on both sides. I agree with that. And so I admit that it seems tenuous, my position on it. Danabo, you're someone who's coming from the left, and me and you were basically the only two people that were arguing against open borders. That used to be a very left-wing position. Cesar Chavez, who was a Hispanic immigrant labor leader in the United States, used to heavily fight against open borders. And he was championing unions, particularly inner city and Hispanic workers' unions. People that came here legally from those communities that said, listen, all of these libertarian institutions like Cato that are saying open borders, it's good for the GDP. What they're ignoring is it's good for the GDP because it's creating more wealth inequality, because you're enriching the wealthiest Americans. Because the more labor there is at the lower levels specifically, that allows them to pay that labor less money, thereby exploiting that labor and getting more rich themselves. And so the very people that will tell you on the left that like, well, we're interested in social programs that kind of stop wealth disparity. We think that the wealth disparity in this country is terrible. Yet at the same time, they're advocating for more influx of cheap labor to further increase wealth disparity. And their reasoning for is it increases the GDP. GDP goes up. But if that's the measure we're going to use, then fine. We could just leave corporations exploit people in every situation. That would increase GDP. Yeah, Danabo's here, Milo. He's just on Twitch. By the way, if you're following me, just so you know, I'm on Periscope right now. It's my Twitter handle is NorRobert. I'm on Twitch TV. It's Normal America with Rob Nor, one word on Twitch TV. Someone could become my first sub ever if you sub to me on Twitch, so that would be great. I'm on D Live at Normal America as well, and then YouTube, as most of you are watching, at Normal America with Rob Nor. So yeah, I could see the chat from all of those. So if you see me responding to people, you're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? I don't see it. Anna says, saying I am who I am when given constructive criticism is disappointing. Ideas are meant to challenge poor views. Well, I agree, but I don't think that my views are contentious, right? I don't think that I'm being hypocritical in my views. I'm telling you that I am authentic. I'm not saying that you can't criticize those views. That's fine. If you have a specific criticism, by all means, give it. But what I refuse to accept is that people that are hypocritical because they feel that their side's doing something, so it's okay. So when I say I am who I am, what I'm trying to tell you is the only thing I have that's worthwhile to listen to me is my authenticity. That's it. That's literally the only reason to listen to me. You're going to find smarter people. Believe it or not, you could find more handsome people. I know. Even funnier people. People with a better beard. By the way, if you see, I don't know why this happens, but my sideburns, my beard grows thicker on this side than this side. It's infuriating. I'm losing all the hair on the top of my head, and it's just migrating down to my chin and my chest. It's gross. It's just a gross situation. So yeah, believe it or not, you can find more handsome people, despite what all the ladies will tell you. But I'm authentic. I'll criticize Trump. I used to have like 60, 70 people watching my YouTube streams. I dropped to like 20 because I started criticizing Trump. I don't care. I am who I am. I don't do this to make money. I don't do this to score points with a political party or anything like that. That's all I have is who I am. That's why I like people like Dylan. That's why, granted, I don't know Danabo well from just seeing him, though. We disagree on 90%. Seemed authentic, seemed willing to disagree with supposedly what his party line would be. I appreciate that because that's a sign of authenticity to me. Well, I don't know that I'm wholesome, but thank you. I know what you mean. Yeah, I get you. I didn't take you to mean that you were disrespecting me. Mr. Torrance says, Obama put 500 miles of border wall. Trump only put up 90. Yeah, Trump should have did better on the border wall. Totally agree. Now, granted, he was being fought back against people in his own party and the entire Democratic Party. But I agree. There's room for criticism there. Milo, you probably do have a better beard than me, Milo. Covington says Trump has put up 300 miles under construction. Yeah, and I agree. Trump's done better. Look, I don't know the exact mileage. There's differing reports of the wall that Trump's put up. But there is room to criticize that he didn't do as much as he said. But you have to understand the other side of that position, whereas he's fought unprecedented, what's the word I'm looking for? Unprecedented impediment of him putting up that wall from both parties. So I think that he's tried to follow through on that promise, but I would have liked to have seen more, regardless. Okay. So I'm going to forgo a little bit of the chat here just to get back to my point. What Tucker Carlson said was, and this is something that I've been saying the whole time. I said this last night, so excuse me if you listen to me and I'm repeating myself, but it's worth saying. So the big attack from Tucker that came from so many people on the left is he's encouraging violence. He's defending a murderer. That statement's egregious for two reasons. One, there is no evidence that I've seen that Rittenhouse is a murderer. There could be evidence. I don't know why he was running in the first place. I don't. But we saw that the man with the shirt over his head was chasing him. Maybe he did something heinous, right? Maybe he sexually assaulted a woman and that's why the person was chasing him. That changes the calculus of what happened. It's very unlikely that's what happened. But you see what I'm saying? I don't know. But what we've seen of the footage is he was being attacked. Shots were fired before he ever fired a shot. He had something on fire thrown at him. Then he used his firearm. Then he tried to call someone, presumably the authorities, but let's assume we don't know it was the authorities. But he appeared to be staying at the scene until people started to scream at him and chase him. Then they chased him. He tripped and fell. Then they assaulted him with a skateboard. He fired in self-defense. And then another person drew a gun on him. He fired in self-defense. Incredibly restrained as far as I'm concerned, had a backbone, and did what we see on video is totally justified in those situations. Does that mean that I'm saying that's it? That's all the evidence? No, I don't know. Like I said, maybe video will come up of him earlier shooting at that guy with the shirt on his head for no reason, and that's why the guy was chasing him. By the way, all things aside, whether or not this was legally justified, morally justified, let me just throw this out to you. If you're one of my friends that are on the left and you like going to these riots or protests, as you would call them, please, please, please use common sense. Don't chase people with a gun. Expect something bad to happen. It doesn't matter if you're morally justified. If you're chasing someone with a gun because you feel that they're going to mass execute people or something like that, that's fine. If you're chasing them with a skateboard and they have a gun and you're going to try to start a fight with them, you're probably going to lose. And it's not going to be good. It's just not smart. Tucker Carlson was making the point that is totally legitimate. It's the same point that I've made since day one. Okay? Are you ready for this? And I'll give you I'll give you this particular situation with vigilantism, but I'll also give you a situation that it's analogous to. I got heat from personal friends that said that they would never talk to me again over a video I did where I suggested that I did think that the National Guard or federal troops or military people should be sent in to quell these riots way back, like a week after George Floyd. Again, I go back to this. Many of the people that I've talked to on the left that defend Black Lives Matter, when you talk to them, and if they're being honest and talking to you in good faith, they'll tell you the truth. They supported these riots, or at least some of them. And they thought that the reason that you saw Democrat governors and mayors unwilling to quell the riots was they thought it hurt Donald Trump. Left-wing Twitch streamer Destiny, who has a big channel. I debated him. By the way, let me say for conservatives I know despise Destiny. I despise a lot of his points too. Was nothing but a gentleman to me. Argued in good faith. We yelled a little bit at each other, but I thought that he dealt with me in good faith. I really did. And he was super polite to me behind the scenes as well. Anyways, neither here nor there. He admitted. He said, yes, of course de Blasio and them told the police to stand down because they thought these riots were bad for Trump. And that's okay. That's good. Political violence to get Trump out of office is worthwhile. I said, that's a mistake. That's terrible. Thank you, let's be frank. He says, get involved in your local elections. Absolutely. That's one of the most important things Frank talks about way better than me, and I should talk about more often. So often we look at the federal government and assume that they have the biggest influence on our lives, and we see that more and more, and it is true more today because we see the disastrous policies of the Democratic Party and how they want to affect your day-to-day life through restrictions, even Republicans that wanted to lock you down and things like that. However, the truth of the matter is this. The number one person that has influence over your life is you. And then it's your family and then your community. And then it gets into politics. But your local political level is way more influential to you than your state level, which is more influential than your national level. So what you can do is get involved in your local political scene. And I mean this if you're on the right, the left, or whatever. Get involved in local politics. It's not hard. I ran for national office. I assure each and every person, whether you're on the left or the right, watching me right here, please, please, please don't make the mistake of thinking you're incapable of governing as well as the people that we've elected. 90% of them are worthless. The only thing you're worse at than them is your ability to get elected. And that's because they're rich and they have connections or they've done it for years. But your ability to run a campaign and get elected doesn't mean you're a good leader. So please get involved in local politics. Thank you, Frank, for that. Debate club. Yeah, that's how I started. I was in policy debate in university. So, though I have many things terrible to say about debate in college. I did a video on it. Check it out. It's on my YouTube channel from a couple weeks ago. All right. So back to what I was saying about what Tucker said. I had all these people that said, look, Rob, what's wrong with you? How could you advocate military on the streets? How could you advocate the National Guard on the streets? I thought you were a civil libertarian. I am, largely. I'm against the war on drugs. I'm against militarization of the police and things like that. I think the police should have at least, they should have ARs and stuff like that. Like, I don't have a problem with that. But believe it or not, because I defend the police a lot, you might be surprised to know that I have a problem with a lot of things that I see in policing. I have a problem when you see bad cops misbehave and they're defended by the police. More than individual police officers, I have a problem with the people that are designing the laws for police to enforce, like civil asset forfeiture laws that are just a money-making scheme. You get caught with a little bit of weed and they take your car, things like that. That's disgusting. But that's not the cops' fault. I don't like the war on drugs. That's not the cops' fault. They're just there to enforce the laws that we voted for. And if we chose to vote for bad people that push bad laws, that's on us, not on the cops. But there are bad cops, and we need to get a return to community policing. I think that that's beneficial. I personally know a lot of good cops. That's how they try to approach. Let me give you just a little side story on this. I know I'm going way off on a tangent here, but I work with people with autism. That's the job I've had for off and on for 9 years straight at my current company, but like 12 years off and on before that. There's a big problem that we need to work with law enforcement and their ill preparedness to deal with people with intellectual disabilities, autism, intermittent explosive disorder, things like that. We need more training. The cops, instead of defunding the police, we should be funding far more training for the police. I could tell you this, that the individual that I take care of now, and I got to be careful, I can't say much, I can't give names or anything like that. The police in my town have gone out of their way to get to know that individual and have been incredibly generous to him. And so they know when they see something that if you saw a person without a disability doing, you would be like, the cops would be like, hey man, you can't be laying in the middle of the road. Hey man, you can't do this. And they would just cuff and stuff you or whatever. But they realize how that could escalate a situation to violence when they're talking about someone with a disability. And they've been incredibly generous and fantastic at trying to get to understand the people that I work with. And so my hat goes off to many of the same officers who I felt gave me noise violations and stuff when I was in college that I would have said I wasn't a big fan of when I was in college, that have been incredibly generous and good-spirited in trying to community police in that way. So again, those cops are doing great. I think that that's a fantastic thing. Not all cops are like it. Anyways, getting off on a tangent here. So, but the demonization of police, it's a disaster. It's going to be bad for generations to come. Young people my age and younger, I don't think I can call myself young anymore. I'm 36. People younger than me, who's going to want to get into law enforcement? It's a disaster. So anyways, what happens is I haven't changed my stance. I don't say lightly that I want the National Guard involved. I don't want troops on the street. However, there were only three options. The best option, that's not one of the three, would have been people don't riot. But that didn't happen. The second best option would have been local authorities took care of it. They allowed their police force to take care of it. That didn't happen. As I've already said, the Democrats encouraged the rioting or ignored them because they thought it hurt Donald Trump. And so then you only have three options. Option one is you just allow the riots to continue, and you have all across the country what we saw in the CHAZ zone. They create their own police. They execute people at will. They extort businesses. There's sexual assaults that they cover up. They destroy evidence so law enforcement can't ever do anything about it. That will be our country. That's the worst option. If you allow people that want to use violence to be allowed to use violence for political ends, then the most violent people will forever be in charge. That's anarchy. That's not good. The second option was to use the National Guard or federal troops. Not a great option, but it's better than option one. The third option was vigilante justice. The mobs will not stop until there's force used against them. That could either be legitimate force through the state, such as locking up these people that are engaged in the rioting with police, or people will defend their own lives and property, which they have every right to do. If the state is not defending you or your property, you have the right to defend yourself. And I know it's being painted as racist. We can go back, though, to the LA riots and see, what do we talk about all the time with the LA riots with vigilantes? Roof Koreans. Because the Korean community, they didn't care. They weren't going to be shamed into being called racist. They worked their butts off. They were immigrants to this country who did things the right way, worked incredible hours in order to obtain the American dream for themselves and their family, and they weren't going to lose everything because of supposedly white supremacy. What do they have to do with that? So they defended their property. It had nothing to do with white supremacy. The same is true here. People, you could see from Kenosha, for example, the business owners after night one with tears in their eyes saying, that was everything. I supported Black Lives Matter. Why are they burning down my stuff? Exactly. So they have every right to defend themselves if the police are unwilling to do it. Keep in mind, when Rittenhouse shot to defend himself, police were a block away watching in a car and didn't lift a finger, probably because they were ordered not to. Anyways, the point is this. I didn't want to see vigilante justice. I don't want to see it. I think that you do have the right to protect yourself if the police won't, but I didn't want to see it come to that. Believe it or not, even though I think Black Lives Matter, the people running it are domestic terrorists, I don't want to see them killed. I don't. I don't want to see anyone die. I hope that all of us, even the people that disagree with me, live long, fruitful, happy lives. That's what I would want. But I understand it's inevitable. If you don't have the police or law enforcement use force, then people will take it into their own hands. That's what I said. That's what Tucker Carlson said. I agree with you, Danabo. I would have immediately called the National Guard when the protests like this broke out as well. Unfortunately, the National Guard has to be accepted by governors and mayors, and all of the Democrat ones refused it. In Kenosha specifically, Trump offered to send 750 National Guard troops out before the second night of rioting, and the governor said, no, we don't want it. You saw in Portland, when the National Guard and federal officials were just protecting the federal courthouse, all of the left-wing people said, oh, that's the reason for the riotings, because the federal troops are there. So they pulled the federal troops out, and the riots continue and grew stronger. So it's clear that the Democrats knew, either they're dumb, which I'm tired of this excuse, they know better, they knew what was going to happen. And so if it's not stupidity, they intentionally allowed these riots to get worse. And they said, oh, it's not happening, oh, it's mostly peaceful. Okay, inevitably, violence is going to ensue. And let me be clear on this. That doesn't, although I'm saying you have a right to defend yourself, I said from day one, I said this. Let me be clear. I'm not pretending that there aren't violent right-wingers that won't exploit this situation. Of course there are. Of course. I assure you that violent white nationalists that want a race war are watching this going, yes, great. Now we have an excuse. We go in and we could say, see, we were justified. They said get rid of the police. They said political violence is justified. Okay, we'll play that game. It's inevitable. Saying it's inevitable isn't an endorsement of it. I don't want vigilante justice. The best option would have been the National Guard. The best option would have been allowing police to do their job. But that didn't happen. So now we only have two options. Leave the violent rioters, do whatever they want, beat whoever they want to death, and just control things. The problem with that is if you say, well, that's okay, they're all left-wing great people. The problem is inevitably the other side's going to do that as well. So you'll see right-wing areas where you see a bunch of right-wingers say, we're going to do what we want. We're going to burn down inner city communities. We're going to use violence to get our political message across. Then what? What kind of country do you have then? We just have local militias running each town? Whichever gang's the biggest runs each town? That's not a good idea. And so the only other option is vigilante justice. That's not endorsement of vigilante justice. It's better than option one. Option two was the National Guard. That's the best, even though it's not a great option. That's the best option available. And option three is vigilante justice. Saying that that's inevitable isn't an endorsement of it. So all these people that are attacking, I mean, I saw Scott Adams' podcast today. The head editor from Politico, I believe it was, his tweet on this was as follows. Thank you, Frank. I really appreciate it. Frank, that's incredibly generous, man. Frank donates $50 and says, I challenge you to donate. Thank you. Yes, follow Frank's lead and donate to me. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Will Biden debate Trump? I don't think he will. I think Pelosi put the first shot in the air today. Pelosi came out today and said she sees no reason for Biden to debate Trump. I'm still predicting that Biden might not be the candidate. That's seeming less likely now. I would have guessed that would have occurred before the convention, but I still predict that. I think that it's quite clearly just a referendum on Trump, the election. Joe Biden is not fit to be president, regardless if you agree with his politics or not. And I'm not even saying that to mock him. He has physical ailments. He's not capable of debating. He's not capable of being president. It is clear. He is the clearest example yet that the establishment doesn't want a leader that's actually powerful and thinks for themselves. They want a puppet that they can control. And so because of that, why would they want him to debate? They're just going to spend all their time saying Trump's evil. They don't want Trump to have a chance to respond. So we'll see, though. So, Gulag, you're absolutely right. Self-defense is the only option at this point. Right. Kyle only drive 25 minutes there, right? Yeah, it is early onset dementia, and it is sad. It actually is sad. But again, he's the perfect Democrat candidate. He would have been the perfect, instead of Jeb Bush, Joe Biden would have been the perfect Republican to go against Trump for the establishment Republicans. They want someone that they know they can control. They don't want someone like Trump that seems unpredictable. Even if you think, well, Trump's a member of the establishment, they think he's unpredictable. They would rather have someone they could totally control, and that wasn't Trump. And Biden does have a creepy disposition to young girls. That's true as well. Okay, so back on this point. So now what this guy from Politico said was this. My biggest fear was vigilante justice as a result of these protests. That's literally what Tucker Carlson's point was. He wasn't saying I embrace vigilante justice, I endorse it. He was saying you had to see the writing on the wall. If you had police unwilling to stop violent rioters, inevitably the people in the community would say, we're going to stop it. I go even further than that. I say not only will that inevitably happen, but there will be justified use of violence against the rioters, and there will be unjustified use of violence. People will take advantage of this situation. When you encourage lawlessness, people from all sides will engage in that lawlessness. So even if it would turn out that Kyle Rittenhouse was a white supremacist, and even if we see later footage that shows that he started all this, that's not an indictment on Republicans. That's not an indictment on anyone politically. What it is an indictment on the ideology that said it's okay to have the police not stop these riots because it was inevitable. Even if Kyle Rittenhouse wasn't a white supremacist, some white supremacists will inevitably, if it's not stopped, take advantage of this situation and kill people. It'll happen. That's not me endorsing white supremacy. I despise white supremacy. You've seen me over and over on this show yell at white supremacists that try to come on. They hate me. Just last night, they were claiming I have dual citizenship and that I'm actually Jewish, which is a lie. I've lived in Clarion County my entire life. The only country I've been to other than the United States is Canada, and that was Niagara Falls when I turned 19 just so I could drink because you were allowed to drink at 19. That's it. Never been outside of the States. I don't even have a passport. I'm a broke, yokel redneck from rural Pennsylvania. But apparently because I'm against white supremacy and Hitler, that all of a sudden I'm a Jewish citizen. It's just nonsense. I'm not embracing white supremacy. I despise it. All the time I talk about that. Right? That's all. I don't have to explain myself, though. You all get that. Anyways, it'll happen. That'll happen. Tucker's being attacked. The Politico guy says, my biggest fear was vigilantism. So he understands. He's agreeing with Tucker Carlson's point right out of the gate. That's his initial statement. Because he knew, like everyone who's thinking objectively, geez, if these riots keep happening and if the police don't step in, eventually people will take it on themselves to defend themselves. That's it. That's not controversial. That's what Tucker Carlson said. We shouldn't be surprised that this happened. Yet he's being paid. Then this Political guy goes on to say, and yet Tucker Carlson, who has the president's ear, is defending this racist white supremacist murder. No evidence that he's a white supremacist. No evidence that he's a murderer. Right now, the evidence seems to suggest that it was self-defense. But even aside from all of that, that wasn't Tucker endorsing it, saying that it's inevitable. That would be no different than saying this. If we don't give women the right to vote, inevitably they will do something so their voice is heard. So then if women engage in a violent riot, that's not you embracing that riot. It's like, what'd you expect to happen? You silenced women. Of course they were going to do something to be heard. We talk about this all the time when I work with people with disabilities, right? Most of the time when you see what we call incidents, it's usually a form of communication. And many times what is true is, like, if you work with someone who's nonverbal and has disabilities, oftentimes you could look and see, look, here's what I did to contribute to that situation escalating. That doesn't mean that I'm endorsing the situation escalating. I'm just saying, if I'm a crappy employee, inevitably the situation will escalate. That's it. That's not an endorsement. So the Politico guy admits, yes, I agree with Tucker Carlson entirely. I was worried there would be vigilante justice because he implicitly understands that's what will happen. Thank you, Paul. What's happening, man? Ace, that's one way of putting it. He says, it's like saying if we don't solve the issues of climate change, we will inevitably be hit by stronger and more frequent hurricanes. Yeah, I guess, would you say the people that said that are pro-hurricane? No, they're just saying, now I disagree with some of the idea of climate change, but I get your point. I see what you're trying to say. Who's racist? Oh, that dude. Yeah, sorry, I don't have any moderators on. I apologize for that. By the way, if anyone's interested that's been watching me more regularly of becoming a moderator on one of my channels, just put it in the chat and I'll get in touch with you.
We're fine,
the only
right?
thing
Wait,
I ask
it's
for
invisible.
my moderator
Where did it go?
if someone's being racist or if they're having extreme vitriol and things like that, please, they're just derailing a good discussion, so you could get rid of them. But please don't ban people for, just disagreeing with me. I encourage the disagreement. So, all right, I'm on Twitch now. If he comments again, I'll ban him. But yeah, that's the type of people I get. Right, I know you did that on purpose, Ace. It was intelligent. So that's the first thing. But now, when you see all these people on the left saying, boycott Tucker, can you believe he said that? What did he say that was wrong? If someone on the left says, oh, if we don't do anything about, systemic poverty in the black community, inevitably violence will increase, does that mean they're pro-violence in the black community? No. Tucker was arguing for the same thing I was arguing for. If you watch his show, which I watch him 50% of the time, what he's been saying is he wants the police to... In fact, he's heavily criticized Trump and the DOJ, saying, why aren't law enforcement officials stopping these riots? That's what he wanted. He also feared vigilante justice. That's exactly what I feared. I didn't want it. I wanted option 2. I actually wanted the original option of allow law enforcement to do their jobs. But then aside from that, I wanted the National Guard to quell the riots. That's what I wanted. But when that didn't happen, I was like, okay, then one of these two bad things is going to happen. My friends that criticized me, where are you tonight? Where are you now? How many bodies must pile up before you apologize for calling me an extremist? Because I could clearly see what was going to happen. And you either accepted that or you couldn't see 3 feet in front of your face. Now people are grabbing guns and taking the matter into their own hands. Justifiably so, I think, in many cases. Now what? You cool with that? Is that the system you wanted? I followed someone on Twitter that said, isn't this just community policing? Isn't that what they wanted? They wanted members of the community to police themselves? Okay, that's what Kyle Rittenhouse did. Right? This is what you wanted, right? It's sad and tragic, but the first person that was shot, what's the first thing you hear on that film? Call the police, they yell. A bunch of people rioting against the existence of the police as soon as life throws them a curveball. And that's the truth about police that no one wants to admit. Yes, 95% of anyone's interactions with the police is going to be negative. You get a speeding ticket. You get some kind of fine. That sucks. But you implicitly understand when life comes at you hard and fast and a disaster hits, who's the first person you want to call? The police. Does that mean they always do a great job? No. But we all understand that. Maybe that's a good reason not to get rid of them. Where's Demon Mama? I don't know. I will get in touch with her someday, and she's more than welcome to come on my channel. I do not think that I'll be doing any 8-on-8 debates, or 8 people debates, though. Not many more. And let me just say this about Demon Mama. She was one of the people that I debated Monday that I thought was incredibly rude and interjecting. I probably was harsher on her than I should have, but I was just getting fed up with it. But I do wish her well. I really do. I also made comments about the trans. Let me quickly identify what I was doing. Afterwards, I talked about this. I bit my tongue and didn't say this, but she seemed to be making a comment that implying that if someone's a Christian, they don't have critical thinking skills because they believe in an invisible man in the sky. And the implication was then they're anti-science. And the point I was making when bringing up the trans community, this is what I said afterwards. I was like, I wanted to bring this up. That's what people say of the trans community as well. I'm not getting into the debate right here about whether or not I believe the trans community and their position on, gender differences and things like that. All I'm saying is there are a lot of people that say, oh, the trans community doesn't believe in science. So how would Demon Mama feel as a trans person if I said, well, hey, there are a lot of people that say you're not fit for office because you seem to be anti-science. And to further buttress that claim, Demon Mama or anyone else could look, I've been pushing back in Pennsylvania. Our health secretary is transsexual. And I screw up the language all the time on this. I believe trans woman, I believe is the correct term. It's a man transitioning to a woman. And I'm against criticizing them for being a trans person. I'm for criticizing them that they should be in jail for murdering old people. I'm for that. But you're just muddying the waters, bringing up the fact that they're trans. Now, having said that, I think that trans is an illness, and I think that the community is incredibly activist in a bad way. But I try to go out of my way I don't pick on someone for being bipolar. I'm not going to pick on someone for being trans. And I try to be polite to anyone, even people that disagree with me. But I wasn't mocking her as trans or anything like that. I'm just making the point. You got to be careful when you say because of perceived beliefs as people that they don't have critical thinking and that, this, that, and the other, because that could be used against you as well. Why don't I all take this to DMs? I don't know, because it's my channel and I just talk about what I want. Yeah, that person's talking again. Yeah. Did you sub? So Abu, I'm gonna block you, and the reason is, I think you're making a lot of. Let me before I block you, just some of the statements you made. You said he looks like a dog effer, same with his inbred Neanderthal supporters. You said that I look Jewish. And things like that. I'm just not going to put up with this, so you're welcome to try again later, but I think that you're derailing in a clearly non-constructive trolling way. So, sorry. See it. Okay. Now, let's talk specifically. Yeah, Zach, I don't care if if you were like, hey, I'm trans, can you please use she, her? I will if you ask. If you demand that, if you compel speech to me, I'll say, no, you don't have the right to tell me that. Anyways, not talking about the trans stuff today. All right. Someone here? Someone in my home? Could be my sister-in-law home. Okay. Let's get to this. So one of the things with the Rittenhouse. Anyways, the last point I want to make here is these people that are now coming at Tucker from the left, they're clearly liars. And I think I've illustrated that. They know that Tucker wasn't endorsing violence. He was just saying this. Now, let's get to the question of whether or not this was justified. I talked a lot last night about what was going on. New evidence has came to light. So here's one of the problems. People are so in their bubbles. Didn't I just block you? 1 second. No. Anyways, sorry about that. Trolls, sorry. I don't know what's going on. I'll try to deal with that later. I'll just ignore them. So new evidences came to light, and one of the problems is a lot of times it's hard to commit. Like, I'm right wing, so if I tell someone something, I see it all through my Facebook. All my left wing friends like, this guy was a violent murderer. How could you cheer for this? He was a white man that had a gun and he went and he executed people. What a horrible person. The police let him go. Blah 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 blah. They're not going to listen to me because they think I'm a right wing lunatic. So let me give you evidence and the best thread I've seen on this from a left wing New York Times reporter. So let's go to my Twitter. This is Christian Trebert. So we're going to go through this Twitter thread. Hopefully y'all can see this. And I'm still working. All right. So this is Christian Trebert of the New York Times visual investigation teams. Now that's as left wing as it comes, as you know. Let's go through this together. A teenager faces charges and shootings that left 2 people dead in Kenosha, Wisconsin. The New York Times Visual Investigations team reviewed hours of live streams to track 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse's movements during and leading up to the shootings. First, in the hours before the shooting incident, Kristen Harris, Richard McGinnis, and Elijah Schaefer all interviewed Rittenhouse, who said he was protecting a local vehicle dealership together with several other armed men. He also offers medical assistance to protesters. Okay, doesn't sound like a white supremacist. Sounds like doing the American thing. Cops won't defend people's properties. He's there to help, but he's also willing to offer medical assistance to protesters. Don't see anything wrong with that. Next. Rittenhouse is around the area that most of the footage we reviewed. About 15 minutes before the first shooting, police drove past Rittenhouse and thanked the group he's with. Quote, "We appreciate you guys. We really do." End quote. They broadcast through the speakers of their armored vehicles. Rittenhouse walks up to a police vehicle with his rifle slung and talks with officers. One tosses a water bottle to the armed men. Okay, don't seem like they're a danger. They're peaceful. They're just protecting property. Next, Rittenhouse eventually leaves the dealership and is barred by the police from returning, as seen by Rupley footage 6 minutes before the shooting. To better understand what happened next, we synchronized 6 live streams which reveal that there are 2 separate shooting incidents, about 1.5 minutes apart, involving multiple gunmen. You get that part? Now, let's see if I could show you this footage. Let me make sure that my audio is working here, just real quick. Okay, put my headphone in so I can hear. At 23:19, you ready? Rittenhouse is seen in this YouTube live stream. He's being chased into the parking lot. While he is being pursued, an unknown gunman fires the first shot into the air. Now, this is the New York Times. What happened there? This is the New York Times. The New York Times, who went through hours of footage admitting he didn't shoot first. He's being pursued. He hears a gunshot. Someone else shot. Let's watch the footage so you can see for yourself.
Them is white boys. Yeah, that's Antifa, man. Oh, we got a gun, baby. Oh, they shooting. Oh, he shot him.
Let me show you that one more time. Watch the circle where you can see, here he is being chased right here. Then you'll see someone right in here pull a handgun up and shoot in the air.
Yeah, that's Antifa, man. Oh, we got a gun, baby. Oh, they shooting. Oh.
Now, I want to take a moment to ask you, please, even if you're on the left, put yourself in this situation. You're being chased. You're fleeing. You're not standing your ground. You're not shooting at people. You're running away as you're being chased with someone who clearly intends to do harm to you. As you're trying to escape the situation and you're running, presumably for your life because you've seen the actions that these people have taken, you hear a gunshot. Pow! As you're running away. You turn around. You see a man chasing you. What are you going to do? This isn't cold-blooded murder. This is someone who legitimately feared for their safety, who has a right in this particular context to defend himself. Does that mean I don't know how this chase started? I don't know. Maybe more evidence will come about. But it is clear as day. He was running from someone who trying to escape the situation. That person intended to do him harm. He then heard a gunshot. He turns around. He sees the man still chasing him in the direction that that gunshot came from. What was he supposed to do? You have a split second to react. He feared for his life. He's not chasing someone else. I'll bring up your video. I don't care. Says a bunch of young boys on with assault rider under the Boogaloo Boys banner gathered. Again, more nonsense. I haven't seen any evidence that they are Boogaloo Boys. This is apparently a libertarian group, anti-government. The shooter is among them. Needless to say, they mingle among protesters. They commence So it says they throw a Molotov cocktail on him. The protests proceed to commence destroying cars. They throw a cocktail. The shooter proceeds to flee the scene and is followed by a bunch of protesters who attempt to chase him down. He's pushed to the ground. He shoots. The shooter is 17 years old and had no right to carry. The police appeared to have turned a blind eye to the presence of this armed group. That being said, when the shooter chose to use his weapon, he was on the back foot and being attacked in both incidences. Yeah, none of that. That's the same footage, right? None of that link, which I was willing to look at, none of that link disproves anything I just said. I don't know how you guys can still see that troll on Twitch. I've blocked him. Is there something I could do aside from blocking? It claims that I've blocked them, but there we go. Banned. I think that'll do. Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm new to this, especially Twitch. I didn't know how to ban them. And I don't have any moderators yet, so sorry about that. Yeah. Anyways, so we could see from the footage there. What that link you showed didn't show that this New York Times one did, who went through all of the same footage, was that someone shot. So put yourself in that position. Please look at the 7th video. Okay? So I'm trying to do this in good faith. Let's look at the 7th video. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, I've seen this footage many times. What do you think this footage shows? CHAZ, he's trying to presumably call the police. He's staying at the scene. They start yelling at him. He flees. They chase him, which we could see from the other videos.
Get away on it! Get away! Get me a fucking light!
I'm not going to watch any more of that. I know what the rest is. What do you think that shows? I'm listening to you, Thick Zach. What do you think that shows? You think it shows him chasing someone, which is why the guy in the red shirt chases him. Okay, let's go back and look again. This literally starts right when... So here's... Your video starts... Let me show you where it starts here. This is before that. Right? So let me show you.
Them is white boys.
There's a wider angle. Show me... This is before the footage you're showing. Show me who he's chasing. Show me in this footage who he's chasing. Now listen. Listen further. I want you to hear the gunshot.
Yeah, that's Antifa, man. Oh, we got a gun, baby.
Boom. There's the gunshot. Now, here's where your video picks up. Right there. That's the gunshot. So the video I'm showing actually includes 11 seconds before the video you say proves that he's chasing someone. So let's go back again. Show me in this video where he's chasing someone. I'll enlarge.
Them is white boys.
I don't see anyone here. No one's running in front of him. There he is. I don't see him chasing anyone. Right there. All right. Show me Thick Zach who he's chasing here. I don't see anyone here. All I see is people chasing him here. Where's the guy in the red shirt? Okay, wait. Here you see.
Yeah, that's Antifa, man. Oh, we got a gun, baby. Man.
That's the guy in the red shirt. Look how he throws a Molotov cocktail or something on fire at him. Watch again.
Yeah, that's Antifa, man.
Sorry, it's not working.
Yeah, that's Antifa.
Right there. That's the guy in the red shirt. So, unfortunately, yeah, the video you showed, it doesn't show that he's chasing someone. So, again, I'm not blaming you. I welcome bringing up as much information as possible. But there's clearly misinformation out there. That's it. That's the end of the discussion. Now, let's go back. I'll respond to you in a second, Eamon. Remind me if I don't respond to you. But Eamon wants to know, why show up as an armed vigilante in a different city in the first place? I'll explain that in a minute. But let's finish the thread that I was on. So that's the first shooting. You're running. Someone's chasing you. You're trying to flee the scene. You hear a gunshot. You turn around. They're right on top of you. You use your gun. Then you stand there with the cell phone. You're presumably calling the police. You're waiting for them to show up because you're freaked out that you just had to use your firearm. And people start chasing you again. It says, Rittenhouse turns towards the sound of gunfire as another pursuer lunges towards him. He then fires 4 times with his assault rifle and appears to shoot the man in the head. The muzzle flash of the first shot by an unknown gunman and the smoke rising from the handgun could be seen in this video capturing the first shooting from a different angle. Here we go. Let's watch this again. Again, New York Times. This isn't Fox News. This isn't OANN. This is left-wing New York Times that went through hours of every available footage that we've had and are proving the case. Let's go back. Let's see it again. Oh, is this what we just watched? Let's check. Boom. There you see the handgun flash right there. Smoke in the air. There's the man chasing Rittenhouse. They go on. It's unclear why Rittenhouse was being chased, which is exactly what I said. That's fair. Or why he was in the area of this dealership. We do know that the vehicles in this lot were damaged minutes before the shooting. There you go. That's exactly where the shooting occurred. The initial shot in Rittenhouse's 4 subsequent discharges of his AR-15 style weapon are followed by 3 more shots in the parking lot. We don't know who fired them. Rittenhouse seems to make a phone call and then flees. So there's more shooting going on. So the guy's being chased. There are gunshots all around him. He tries to call someone. He's going to stand around. And then there's more gunshots, and people start chasing him, and he flees. Bam, bam, bam. That's not his gun. There he is. He's standing there. You see? He's on the phone. He's over the person that he just shot. Clearly, this isn't someone who's a cold-blooded killer that's just gunning people down. He appears concerned that he just shot someone who was chasing him, and there were gunshots. That's conservative journalist, I forget his name, trying to help the person that shot. There he is. He's on the phone. He sees people start coming at him and screaming. So he runs. While fleeing from the scene, Rittenhouse is again chased by several people. He trips and falls to the ground and fires 4 shots as 3 people rush at him. One appears to be hit in the chest while the other's carrying a handgun. There's Rittenhouse. He's running away again. The second time he's running away. This guy, they're trying to kill him is what they're going to do. A mob coming after him. He trips and falls to the ground. Boom, he's down. Guy tries to hit him with the skateboard in the head. Here's a handgun that the person coming at him has. Why is the media not covering this? Why is the left-wing narrative not covering this? Now, just real quick. At the same time, we hear at least 8 gunshots from further away. More people shooting. Mr. Rittenhouse gets up and begins walking north from the scene, and 8 more gunshots are heard from closer range. Police vehicles were just 1 block away. They don't intervene in the gunfire. Rittenhouse walks up with his hands toward the police as bystanders call out that he was involved in the shooting. The police drive by him to the scene of the shootings without stopping. He tells the police what happens. He's not fleeing them. Rittenhouse social media profile proclaimed support for pro-police causes, like Blue Lives Matter. Other posts show him taking backyard target practice. Okay, no problem there. We're continuing to investigate the incident. A big thanks. Now, I will fully admit to you, more evidence could come to light that show what led up to that initial chase. But we could see the initial chase, it was a justifiable shoot. And the second two people that were shot were justified. He was trying to flee the scene. He was doing everything he should, trying to escape the situation instead of escalating the violence. They tried to attack him. People were firing guns. He fought back. Then people tried to crush his skull with a skateboard. He fought back. Then people were firing guns and another man pointed a gun at him. He fought back. That's totally legitimate. What Poop Pup said is not racism. Pointing out the actual statistics of where violent crimes occurring in the black community isn't racism. In fact, I think it's a sort of racism to ignore those stats, because what ends up happening is it's a small comfort to the black mother that lost her child to gang violence. Oh, don't worry. We'll make sure that anyone that talks about the scourge of black on black crime is shamed as a racist. Small comfort to the woman who lost her son, right? Don't worry, we're not going to do anything to help improve this situation. We'll just call people racist that talk about the problem. Now, Eamon Lotus says, why was he there in the first place? Why not? First off, if you ask that question of all the rioters all across the country that we've seen over and over and over again, many times they're not from those cities. But no one had any problem with them coming from out of state to riot in inner city black neighborhoods and burn down property. No one had a problem with that. Second, yes, Americans have every right to come and drive as far as they want to protect other Americans that the police are unwilling to protect. They absolutely have that right. Does that mean that they can't engage criminally once they're there? No, but I don't see evidence that Rittenhouse engaged criminally. If he was unlawfully carrying this gun, then he should be charged with that. But he did not do anything from this footage that I see that was criminal. He defended himself. This would be the equivalent of saying, oh, during the Jim Crow South, why would black people from the North go down and, stand in solidarity or fight back against racists in that area? Because they saw that the local authorities weren't doing anything to the violence in those communities, and that's why they came in. $13.50 is not a BS point. I've done entire videos on it. I'll debate anyone that wants to talk about it. It's absolute garbage. In fact, I did a whole video using the most recent statistics from the 2018 Bureau of Justice Statistics. In fact, even left-wing commentators admit that the 1350 talking point is correct. It's just they say, why is it like that? That's a fair point. That's what we should be discussing. But they don't deny that that's true, that blacks make up 13% of the population and commit 50% of violent crime, homicide specifically. It's a true statement. You just saying that it's BS doesn't prove it's BS. You might say, well, why is that? That's a fair point, and we should have a conversation of that. And that's something we need to do better as a country. But to just say, now that's racist to say that is not helping the situation, and this is oftentimes what people do. Yes, I don't have to read the article. I'm well aware that there are people that seek to control the There are a large group of people that don't care at all of black homicide victims. They don't care. They don't want you to talk about them. They're more than happy. If 50,000 blacks are murdered in the black community this year, they would be more than happy with it. And they'll shame anyone that says, my God, this is a horrible problem. We need to see what we could do and figure out why this problem is occurring. They'll shame them and saying, oh, nope, if you want to discuss that problem, you're a racist. I get it, Eamon. I get that you're perfectly fine with black homicide victims. You like that. You like the black community being decimated by homicide. I get that. Other of us choose not to enjoy that and choose to identify that as a real problem that needs to be solved. But I understand that you don't care about the black community, so that's fine. Yeah, what about the people whose lives are in those businesses? Absolutely. So I just think it's funny. You see all these people on the left say things. They didn't care. They didn't care when outsiders came in and rioted all across the country. Didn't care about that. They didn't care that over 32 people were killed as a result of these riots. Didn't care about that. Didn't care about the countless people that lost businesses, that had their homes burnt down, shop owners that were beaten, other people that were beaten. They didn't care about the white girl that was killed for supposedly saying all lives matter. Now, it's allegedly, but they didn't care about that story. They didn't care about a Black Lives Matter protester that shot into a car and shot a 7-year-old girl. Didn't care about that. They didn't care when NPR misled readers into saying that white supremacists were running over Black Lives Matter supporters, when in reality, this actual image that they used was a black woman in a car who was stopped by Black Lives Matter, had a gun pulled on her, and hit the gas because they were trying to shoot in her car. They didn't care about any of that. They don't care if these people are from outside the community. They don't care if they're armed. They don't care about any of that. But the moment that people say enough is enough and want to defend themselves, they say, oh my God, this is a huge problem. This is exactly what I said would happen. This is what the left wants to do. Not everyone in the left, I understand, but the establishment left and many people that support them. This is what they want. They want to make sure that you don't have the right to defend yourself. You don't have the right to free speech. They want to cancel you. They want to take away your right to defend yourself, take away the police right to defend you, make you a perpetual victim. You're a horrible person. You're responsible for sins of your ancestors. You're evil and immoral. You have to take the beating. You have to accept that your property will be burnt down. You have to accept the fact that if a mob wants to beat you near to death, that that's justified and you have it coming. And the moment that you defend yourself, they say, oh my God, you're such a violent bully. How could you do this? Oh my God, this is horrible. That's the left in a nutshell. It's every single thing. They want to weaponize the FBI. Under Barack Obama, James Comey and the FBI engaged in a coup against Donald Trump. They weaponized the intel agency and spied on a presidential campaign and then a president. Unprecedented, the biggest political scandal in the history of our country. And then when Trump tries to investigate that, they say that that's impeachable. So they're allowed to weaponize the intelligence agency, but Trump trying to investigate it is, oh, that's unethical. You can't do that. They issued a quid pro quo to get a prosecutor fired that was looking into Joe Biden's son in the Ukraine. That was fine. Trump allegedly issuing a quid pro quo, which he didn't do, to investigate that criminal action, that's impeachable, they say, and they impeach Trump over that. They defend rioters and say that the rioters should be allowed. They're mostly peaceful and they could burn things down and no problem. Beat shop owners, and people like Jerry Nadler says, it's a myth. There's no violence. They call places like the CHAZ zone the summer of love as they're executing unarmed black teenagers in cars. And then as soon as someone stands up to it, they're like, oh my God, that's violent. You can't stand up to the violence. This is their playbook. This is exactly what they've been trying to do for so long. They were trying to goad Trump into sending in federal officials to stop the violence so they could say, see, Trump's a dictator. So they support violent rioters or deflect for them. And then when the reaction inevitably happens, they say, see, white supremacy, we're the victims. I don't care what this GOP release. Mueller specifically showed that they didn't concede that Trump accepted Russian help. That's not what happened. Let me ask you this. Was it accepting... You remember when Rachel Maddow illegally got our hands on Trump's tax records? Was that accepting illegal help when her and the Democrats used that talking point? Was that accepting illegal help? When the biggest example of Russian interference, for example, was the fake claims made by a Russian source that were used for the Steele dossier that we now know were all garbage. That information came directly from a Kremlin official. It was never verified. It was disinformation. We now know it wasn't true. It was used by the FBI under Barack Obama to spy on Trump's campaign. It was paid for by Hillary Clinton's party. Russian dirt. They accepted that Russian help. Why aren't you screaming that the Democrats accepted Russian help? In fact, they accepted the help much more. They actually used it as a precursor without verifying it to spy on Donald Trump. The Mueller investigation, which every Democrat said, it's Mueller time, this is going to be the end of it, definitively concluded that no American, including anyone connected to the Trump campaign or Trump himself, illegally conspired with Russians to affect the 2016 election. Definitively says it. Yeah, but Russians favored Trump and Trump welcomed talking points that Russia said. So China right now wants Biden elected. Biden and them are repeating talking points from China, talking about how it's racist to call it the Chinese virus. Does that mean that Biden's accepting Chinese help? Yes, Eamon says, you probably shouldn't go with a group of armed chuds to a left-leaning anti-police violence protest riot. I get it. I understand exactly your point. I get it. We should allow the left and their foot soldiers, the Democratic foot soldiers, to burn down every city. You're immoral if you go there to prevent that from happening. I get that that's your talking point. I wonder if you'd say the same thing if it was radical right-wingers. If we had a group of radical right-wingers that were burning down an inner city, would you say, and the police and mayors all said, that's fine, we're going to allow it to happen. Would you say, well, it's immoral and stupid for people to go in and try to protect those inner city communities from right-wing extremists? No, of course not. You would be demanding that law enforcement do something, and you would be having marches and people showing up by the tens of thousands to protect these minority-owned businesses. But when it's left-wing people destroying them, no problem. Eamon goes with another left-wing talking point. Radical right-wingers get away with literally storming government buildings and having photo ops inside uninterrupted. Yeah, I remember when they burned down those government buildings too. Right? I remember when they started beating up shop owners and looting local businesses. Oh, wait, no, that didn't happen. Strange how that works, huh? Yeah, you're right. A bunch of right-wingers protested peacefully against their government. And? Yep. Did 32 people die as a result of that? Were they demanding cars stop and pointing guns at them and shooting inside the cars if they didn't stop? Were they burning down buildings? Were they killing security guards that were protecting shops? Were they looting businesses? They do any of that? They burn anyone alive in a business like they did in Minneapolis on the first night? Did they try to lock police officers in a building and then light the building on fire? Did they do that? No? They didn't do any of that? Yeah, isn't that strange? Huh. No, I'm not talking about one video. For example, there was a video out of Rochester where an old woman was pleading with people to get out of there, and they beat her with a 2x4. Two people from Black Lives Matter. Her husband's seen screaming, please stop, stop. They proceed to beat him. Or how about, well, why even go back that far? Why don't we just go back 2 nights ago in Kenosha, where a 70-year-old man used a fire extinguisher to try to put out the fires the arsonists were setting in his place of business, tried to chase them out of there. Then they beat him unconscious. How about that? This has happened over and over again. Don't take my word for it. Follow Trump-hating left-wing journalist Michael Tracy, who actually physically traveled city to city and talked to people, the majority of which were people of color, including many immigrant Americans, who were shocked that the media wasn't covering how devastated their cities were and how many buildings were burnt down. Shocked. I actually love when left-wing people come on and go with these talking points because they prove my point. If you're on the right or if you're someone not paying attention, you'd be like, Rob, are people really saying this? Yes, read the chat. Read the Twitch chat. Oh, hey, Mom. My mom's watching me. Mom, did you get me any insurance leads? It looks from all accounts like this person defended. What would you say if it was the opposite? Let's say, for example, that Charlottesville occurred, right? Let's say that they're going to do Charlottesville 3.0, and a bunch of white nationalists are going to show up, right? And protesters show up, just like the first Charlottesville. Many of the protesters armed. And Trump was right. There were bad people on both sides of that. I'm not going to get into the lie that Trump said that Nazis were good people. He did not. He condemned racism all 3 times. It's a lie that's spread by people that want to encourage racial division and violence because they want to say Trump's a racist, his supporters are racist, therefore you could use violence against them. It's a lie that you could easily disprove by just reading the 3 transcripts, which I've done many times on this channel. But there were bad people on both sides. That's true. So let's assume that that happens again and a bunch of white supremacists want to have a rally and people show up armed to say, no, we're just here to make sure that the white supremacists don't do anything to the community. And then a bunch of the white supremacists start chasing to beat down one of the armed minority people. Hey, what's up, Sandy? I will buy something for the baby. Thank you. So let's just assume that, you know, it could be a person of color. It doesn't matter. Someone shows up against the white supremacists and they're legally carrying a firearm. They're allowed to do so. And then you see that a bunch of the white supremacists are attacking him, chasing him as he's running away, this person of color. And then a gunshot's fired from the direction of the people chasing the person of color. And the person of color, Tom, turns and discharges his weapon at the person trying to attack him. Would you be saying, what's that black person doing there? It's not their community. Why'd they have a gun? That's immoral. What's going on? Then a bunch of other white supremacists start to chase down that guy, pull a gun on him, fire more shots, and try to crush his head with a skateboard. Would you be saying, oh my God, what's this person doing? What's this person of color doing? Is that what you would be saying? Why was he even in the area? He's clearly a murderer. Is that what you would be saying? Yeah, Eamon, I'll respond to you, Thick. What'd you say? By the way, Thick, Eamon, you guys are more than welcome to get in my Discord or call my Google Voice, and you could actually come on so you don't have to type. I'll give you your fair shot. Thick, what did you say that you think I'm not responding to? Anyone going to say anything back to me? The thing is, things are insured. People aren't. That's garbage. The insured thing is absolute garbage. Oftentimes, the insurance doesn't pay out. And even if it does, it takes sometimes years for it to pay out. And there are things in property that aren't just monetary value, but they could be things that are of sentimental value, which are important. You absolutely have the right to protect your property. Absolutely. If you don't believe that, Thick, move out of your house and give it all away right now. And then file an insurance claim. Go ahead. It's not just that. And it's absurd that this is an argument people make. Hey, you should allow people to just burn down all your property. Insurance will take care of it inevitably. Absolutely ridiculous. Protecting property with lethal force is very dumb and reason to end up with a life sentence. No, it's not. You absolutely have the right to protect your personal property. And if you're being attacked while you're defending your personal property, you absolutely have the right to use lethal force, particularly when there are gunshots being fired. So yes, I'll respond to your inane, dumb comment. That's absolutely the case. Again, the very same people. The hypocrisy is astounding. It's absolutely astounding. Let's see a bunch of white supremacists go into a black neighborhood and start burning down the community. And I guarantee people like Thick Sack would be like, this is outrageous. Why aren't the police intervening? My God. You wouldn't be saying, what are those black people doing trying to defend their property? That's absurd. That's not what you would be saying. We all know it. If it was your property, that's not what you would be saying. In fact, we'd never see that situation in today's world because the narrative is controlled so much by the establishment left wing that there would immediately be a nationwide call to stop the white supremacists trying to destroy inner city property. But when it's left wingers doing it, all of a sudden, all of these institutions are like, yay, we support it. Yes, I know, Chris, the insurance indemnifies you. It's supposed to put you back in the position you were before the loss, but it doesn't always work. Some things aren't insurable, right? Ask the people in Hurricane Katrina how much insurance helped them. Many of them never got a payout. We'll see what happens. Then your rates go up. Again, you lose things of sentimental value. You might not get a payout. It might take years to get the payout. Your rates are going to go up. Everyone's rates go up as a result. How long will we be able to just print money and fund the constant destruction of our cities? If it's immoral, I'm not saying you're saying this, Chris, but if it's immoral to defend property, then we could just burn down things anytime we want, right? And there's infinite money. It'll take care of it. It's so stupid. And Danabo, you're right. As a lefty, you'd say it'd be absurd to protect property. I disagree. Now, do I think that you should be allowed to shoot and kill someone if they're just like stealing your yard sign and you're protecting your property? No. But that's clear. You're right about the greater point here, Danabo, which was they were physically attacking him, which he had the right to defend himself. But you're certainly allowed to stand there. And the reason that they're not concealed carry, like, think about this. Let's say if you really wanted an excuse to shoot these rioters, you would conceal carry. You would goad them in. Go ahead. Smash that building. Bam, bam, bam. Right? Instead, the reason that you are brandishing a weapon in full view is you're trying to tell the people, I don't want to have to use this. Go away. Get out of here. I'm clearly showing you that I'm armed. Then when you're clearly showing that you're armed with an AR-15 and you're running away, trying to avoid the situation, and they're chasing you, and still so many people on the left are like, oh, he can't fire back. What was he supposed to do? What would you be saying if he would have been beaten to death? Then, well, I guess once he had his brain caved in or someone shot him in the face, then he could have defended himself. It's so stupid. Oh, I know that's not what you're saying, Chris. I'm just talking about, I totally understand what you're saying about indemnification. I'm just using your point to show why these other people are wrong. I get what you're saying, Chris. Eamon Lotus says, one last thing. I realize who you are. You're the guy that debated Destiny and literally talked complete bullshit talking points for 2 hours. Now I understand you're ranting. You're just a mental gymnastic master. I thought I handled myself very well in the debate with Destiny. People can check both the debates I had with Destiny out on my YouTube channel, and I would talk to him anytime again. Again, I know that left-wing sycophants, or not even that, people are going to cheer for the people that they follow. So I get that all of Destiny supporters thinks Destiny crushed me in that debate or something. It didn't happen. It's objectively not true. Destiny, I knew that I wasn't going to change Destiny's mind. I got him to concede the following things, that the riots weren't about black men being killed by police. It was more about things like black people getting more parking tickets and speeding tickets, that the violence was justified, that it's okay to use violence for political purposes, and that it was geared into stopping Donald Trump from being elected. That's everything that I wanted him to admit. He admitted. Now, you on the left say, yes, that's good. I'm totally cool with that. That's fine. That's great. As long as you're open about your extremist beliefs, totally fine. So I'm more than happy to be able to show this is what some left-wingers think. It's what that Destiny guy thought. That's what thousands of his supporters thought. They all agreed that that was a good position. It is not. Once you start embracing political violence, inevitably the other side will use that political violence. And the hypocrites, many people on the left that can't understand, oh, now, like instantly, like the hypocrisy is astounding. As soon as the first guy is shot, what do they say? Call the police! So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave here soon. Dinner date with the wife. So she works till 5. I'm supposed to meet her at 5. So I'm going to wrap up here. Let me say this. I know I'm giving people on the left a hard time here, but that's the nature of these sorts of discussion. I'm going to defend myself. I really appreciate every one of you that are on here. I really do. Except the person that was yelling, like, just obscenities and stuff like that. Like, that's nonsense. But, right. Mick says, you realized who he is because I debated Destiny. How is that some gotcha moment? Right. Yes, the cops were a block away watching the exact, absolutely. Which further illustrates if you don't allow cops to stop this rioting, people will take it in their own hands. That's exactly what it shows. Post what to Rob's Discord? Sorry, I'm just going through the chat. I do have to leave here soon. I'd debate Destiny or Valsh anytime on the 1350 statistics. I saw Valsh's video on it. I would debate them. I've yet to see. I'm willing to accept that some of the reason for blacks being 13% of the population committing 50% of homicides could be through systemic racism. I've yet to see proof of it despite seeing their videos. But they concede right out of the gate, yes, the statistic's true, and yes, it's worth talking about. Statistics aren't racist. If I cite blacks are 13% of the population, they commit 50% of the homicides, therefore I don't want blacks in my neighborhood, that's racism. That's not what I'm doing. I'm responding to people that say, the fact that police are 2.5 times more likely to shoot blacks proves that there's systemic racism. I'm saying, well, wait a minute. We need to look at what the possible reasons are for why that could be. It could be because there's way more violent crime, particularly in inner city black communities. The correct thing to do as a response to that is say, that could be true, but let's look at why there is more violent crime. That's a worthwhile discussion that could actually save people's lives and actually lead to positive policy changes. It is not worthwhile to just scream racism. It is bought and played for by the Democrats. That's exactly right. And that's my point. They didn't care about the riots. They didn't care about the deaths. None of it. They didn't care about any of it until their internal polling showed, shocker of shockers, people don't like riots. And look, people like Eamon could be on here and people like Thick Zach could be on here and pay lip service to how these riots are good or they're not that bad and mostly peaceful or whatever. That's fine. Please, I encourage you to keep speaking up. Speak up more. Tell your Democrat politicians to say the same thing. Tell all the Hollywood people to keep saying it. And we'll see what America thinks about that. That's your vision for the future. The riots are okay. Fair enough. That's fine. Run on that platform. Totally fine with it. But you know it's a loser, so now you're pretending that you don't like the riots, and you'll take the lead of your political and cultural leaders that have said, what riots? Jerry Nadler said, riot, it's a myth. It's a myth that there's violence. That's what he said the other day. I didn't say you said riots are okay, and if I did say that, I didn't mean to say that. I said that people on the left, the establishment, thought that the riots were okay. Maybe I did say that you said they were okay. I don't think you specifically said the riots were okay. But the fact that you're shaming people from legitimately defending themselves from the rioters proves that you're not clearly thinking about the situation. If you think the riots are bad, then surely you understand people. If the riots are bad and you're against them and you think and you know that the police aren't intervening, then surely you understand people defending themselves, right? That's right. Poop 420, heck of a name. By saying Kyle shouldn't have done what he did, you're tacitly siding with the rioters. Basically. All right. I gotta go. I gotta meet the wife, so thank you all so much. I don't do advertisements, so let me say this real quick. I've been saying a lot. Thank you so much to Let's Be Frank and Sandy and anyone else that donated. I don't know if I could see donations on Twitch or DLive. I still think I have 0 subscribers, so if someone would like to subscribe to me on Twitch, I'd really appreciate it. But if not, that's cool. If you would like to help me out, you could like and share my stuff. Follow me on Twitch, where I'm Normal America with Rob Noor, DLive, where I'm Normal America, YouTube, where I'm Normal America with Rob Noor. You could also recommend me to some people. I'd really appreciate that. Also, I sell life insurance. It's something that everyone should have. It'll never be cheaper than it is right now. So please let me know. Even if you think you can't afford it, there could be things that you could do as little as $10, $12 a month that could really help out. So please email me at rob.noor@gmail.com if that's something you're interested in and just want to talk about it. Let me put that up. I don't do advertisements on my show, so I'm just advertising what I believe in, which is what I do. All right. As always, stay safe out there. Understand that your government is not willing to protect you right now because the institutions are ran by people that don't care if your property is destroyed, if you're beaten, if you're attacked. They don't care about that. They don't care at all. And so you need to defend yourself. Don't go out of your way looking for trouble, but be as reasonable in the least necessary force to defend yourself and your property because you can't trust the government to do it. Stay safe. I don't want to see anyone die. And please vote wisely because it is clear that the Democratic Party was complicit in these riots and they want them to continue as long as they think it'll help their election chances. As soon as their internal polling suggests otherwise, they'll now pretend that they cared about you. They don't care about you. So vote wisely. But thank you, everyone, for watching me. I'm humbled that anyone would listen to me. I talked about Prime K's stream the other day. It doesn't matter that he was in a different state, Zach. Did you say the same thing about the sit-ins? The civil rights movement? Did you say, oh, if they were being attacked and they defended themselves, well, hey, they shouldn't have been in a state that wasn't their own? Do you say the same thing about the rioters? The majority of these riots every single time are for people that aren't local. Or even if they are local, they're not rioting in their own house and their own community. They're going to the inner city communities. When police are unwilling to defend us from left-wing domestic terrorists, I don't have a problem with Americans coming together, even if it's not their own physical community. He drove 20 minutes to a community that he frequently visited. He was cleaning up graffiti. He was offering medical aid to protesters, and he was defending people's properties because law enforcement won't do so. No problem with it. Did Twitch remove my affiliate status? Maybe. I'll check it out. Huh. That's a bummer if that happened. I don't know. So, all right. Thanks so much, everyone. I got to run, but I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. Even those that disagree with me, thank you so much for being here. Next time, if you disagree with me, feel free. I give you a Google Voice number. You can call in with your cell phone. We can have your audio on here. I'll give you your chance to say your piece because it is, let me be honest, I'll beat you in a debate anyways. I'm just kidding, but I probably will. I'm decent at it. But all arrogance aside, it's hard to keep up with someone that talks as fast as me when you have to type. And I have to read your comments and I might miss them. So it would be more fair if you have a chance to actually have your voice heard. So, all right. Thank you so much. You guys are the best. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.